After 6.5 years in the Navy, doing my bit for country in the last war, I was very proud of that little effort. I found myself in Civvy Street, and what a shock it was. I'd forgotten what Civvy Street looked like. And when I came back, I was very much a square peg in a round hole. I must have been rather a miserable chap to sort of live with, really. I mean, I went back home and I just couldn't settle down to it, and I was very moody and very miserable, and goodness knows what my sister and her husband who I was staying with at the time must have thought of me. But I couldn't help it. It was just one of those things. I met a young lady at work, and we immediately sort of got together. We worked at the same place, and she'd been in the army for 4 or 5 years, so we were both of a similar nature in that respect. And we got together, and about 9 months we were courting, and we both said, well, no point, wasting too much time, the long courtship. We're 26, 27 sort of thing. Let's get married and start our married life, and that's it. So we did. Do you remember the day we got married in March, what was it? No, February?
February the 18th.
1947. Do you remember how cold it was? And there'd be like a couple of frozen peas in the church. Oh yes, you remember we went to Tottenham. I went to Devon for a couple of days honeymoon, and we stayed for 16 years. So we had rather a long honeymoon, didn't we? Really. I realised then that I had to get my nose to the grindstone and get down to some serious work. Forget about the Navy; those days were gone. And I had a wife and a baby on the way. And I had to get my nose down and keep them. So I got a job eventually, and we progressed from a caravan to a one-room above a shop, and then we went from that to a little 2-room cottage in Devon. And Linda came along, and we settled down to a sort of a happy family life. We hadn't got much money, but we didn't care. We were both young, both very happy. We went to Plymouth one day. Lou wanted to look around the shops, what women are like, the clothes shops. And while she was gone, I was wandering around on my own, and I found this little junk shop. And there was lots of photographic gear in the window. So I pops in, but what caught my eye was a little cine camera. And it was a little 9.5 cine camera. So I asked her what he wanted for it. He said, well, a £5. So I thought, dear, for a lot of money, I suppose, in those days, but nevertheless, I won't tell Lou. I'll buy it. So I had a £5 in my pocket, about all I did have at the time. Bought the camera, smuggled it home, and brought it out a few months later, and Lou said, what's that you got? I said, oh, a little cine camera I picked up cheap in Plymouth. Oh, and she blew her top because we could have bought curtains and carpets and what have you. Anyhow, Lou got over it, and I managed to buy 2 or 3 rolls of 9.5 film, and I shot pictures of the Linda, 2 or 3 years old, and over the course of the next 3 or 4 years I took pictures of the family. When we look back now, we have a good laugh, and we're both very glad that we did spend the £5, and we've got a little bit of a family history tucked away, which is rather nice to look at. I'll just give it a try. Yes, still works. A little simple little viewfinder. You swing it around, and there you are. Little camera, never part with it. It's a family friend. Even in those days, film was still quite an expensive hobby. It never has been, as far as I can remember, a dirt cheap hobby. Film was always a bit on the dear side. A period of time elapsed, 10, 15 years, I suppose, when I didn't buy no film. And then we sold up and we decided to come back to Southend. Back in the 60s, I got involved with the Odeon through my sister, I suppose. She was the assistant manageress at the time in the booking office. And she sort of got me into the Odeon, got me to know Arthur Leveson, the manager. And they were looking for a handyman type of chap. They didn't want to employ anybody, but they wanted a subcontractor. So Fortunately, I got the job of subcontracting to the Odeon, all these little small jobs. It was during that period of time that the great pop tours started. The Rolling Stones, the Beatles came down, and I met a lot of the pop stars. Some were very nice, some I didn't like very much. Dusty Springfield was very nice. Cliff Richards was a great character. We got to know him quite well backstage. You do get to know these people. Roy Orbison, he came down once. He was a very nice chap. My daughter, I suppose Lynn, was about sort of coming up to 12, 13, 14 then. And just the right age for pop stars, you know, because she used to come to the Odeon to help my sister, and her main job was she used to make tea for these Cliff Richards and those sort of stars, and used to love to take the tea up to the dressing rooms and things like that. And we met a whole load of stars. A lot of fun was had by all in those days. Well, unfortunately, the pop scene came to a close. There was no more shows booked at the Odeon. And the powers to be, the rank organisation, had decided to twin, and so it went ahead. They closed the theatre for 9-10 months, and I found it very heartbreaking to see that beautiful cinema, built in 1934, being destroyed bit by bit. It was while I was working at the Odeon during the twinning programme that I met some chaps from the local city club. They were, in fact, making a short documentary film about the twinning programme. They very soon persuaded me to join the club, and because I got interested in silly film again. It was during the course of the next few weeks, the chairman one night had made an announcement that he would like members to bring their very first film they ever shot. And so me, feeling one of the members now, I felt right to bring along my 9/5 film, which I was very proud of at the time. So I took it along, and Julie was put on the screen. I had to take my own projector because they hadn't got a 9/5 projector, and because everybody took the mick out of the projector because it was a very, very old one, and I had to sort of hand crank it, and somebody said, "Do you want a fresh candle, George?" and things like that. So we got the projector going, and I showed the film, and because everybody fell about their seats laughing, because it was really a dreadful film, I suppose. But it was really purely a family film, and everybody seems to be waving in the film. In those days, you know, in my experience was I bought this camera and I wanted to take a shot of a person, they'd say, "Well, what do you want me to do?" And I'd say, "Well, give me a wave." And because the whole film consists of all these various people and relations and friends all waving at the camera. So because a few of the bright sparks at the club christened the film 1,000 Ways to Wave, and it's been known by that name ever since. Bob Godfrey came down as a guest speaker one year, and he's a very well-known, famous animator, and I'd already started having to go at animation, but I almost gave it up because it's a very tedious and laborious sort of work. Nevertheless, Bob Godfrey came, and his work, and I saw his work and the type of chap, and he was a great inspiration to me. Having got the book by Bob Godfrey, issued by the BBC, I picked out a little character from the book called Henry Higgins, and I thought I could use him as quite a simple little figure. And so I sort of got down to done a serious sort of little script, a very short film in 3 or 4 minutes, where Henry goes out and he buys a blow-up doll, pops it in the car, takes it home, he unpacks it, and he starts to blow it up. Having completed the film, I thought I'll enter it into the humorous competition, which was in a few weeks' time. So I put the film into the competition, and I must be honest, I've never heard the end of it since. It caused a lot of laughter, and they all liked it, but I've got a very bad name ever since. In fact, every time there's a a film and there's bare boobs on the screen. It's George, are you awake? Or George, have you got your glasses on? What do you know? Look what you're missing, sort of thing. But nevertheless, it was good fun making the film, and I've never sent it away to competition. It's not good enough for that, but it's made mainly for the club. But it did win the Humorous Trophy, which I was very proud of at the time. I know it's been done before, The Legend of the Willow Pattern, but I always remember as a kid reading about it at school, a nice little fairy story, sort of a Chinese story. And I thought I'd have a go at making, as a film, The Legend of the Willow Pattern.
Long, long ago, in the land of China, there lived a wealthy mandarin named Su Ling. His lands were broad and fertile, and his palace was built of fine woods, richly lacquered.
The peasant boy meets the rich mandarin's daughter, and the rich mandarin is very cross with his daughter, so he imprisons his daughter, but love is much stronger, and the boy gets to the girl, as he always does, and he runs off with the girl, and the mandarin, the girl's father, sets the army after the peasant boy and kills him, and then sets fire to the building, and they both perish in the flames.
And from that day, they flew free and happy, high in the blue skies of China.
It was about that time, unfortunately, I got made redundant, and so I was out of work for a small period of time, and then I was offered a job as a maintenance engineer with a photographic company. I didn't realise at the time, but it was really a very exciting job because it was all to do with cameras and graphic arts. One of the jobs was to test the machine so it didn't scratch the film, and so we run these large sheets of litho film through the machine, about 24 inches square, and when they were run through the machine they couldn't be reused, so they was usually scrapped. And it occurred to me that I might be able to use this film for some reason or other. I don't like to see things wasted. And I found that if you had a scalpel knife or even a pin, you could actually draw pictures on this black film. It would scratch the emulsion off and leave a sharp, bright white light coming through. And I thought, oh, this could be useful for future filmmaking. Being a lover of some of the old musical films back in the sort of 30s, Busby Berkeley used to make a lot of these big dance routines in the Broadway melody films, things like that. I then set about, I rough scripted a story. I had to now think how I was going to start the film, so I thought, well, I'll go back to the early days. I'll show a little bit of Coming Soon and bring the audience into the period of Busby Berkeley with films such as Dames and the Broadway Melodies of 33, 34, 35, 42nd Street, etc. And I started off with a cinema shot of an organ, with an organist playing at the cinema organ. And then I came into the film, which was made by Warner Brothers, and I showed that. And then I came into the actual sequence of the 42nd Street. I used copy paper as well as black film, as well as clear film. The actual dancing characters, the men dancing, the chorus line, as you might call it, I used on copy paper and black ink because I wanted to show silhouette figures more than actual descriptive drawings. The black film I used for the skyscraper sequence, where I was able to use the scalpel knife and scratch the skyscrapers onto black film and do very fine work because the scalpel knife is very sharp and you can cut the little windows out in the skyscrapers and get light through them. I want to create a street scene of New York. I don't believe in spending a lot of money on materials. I sort of went in the kitchen and pinched some of Lou's cooking greaseproof paper because I found that if you use that, you could actually hold that over the artwork. When it was flat on, it was a good clear picture. Then when you lift the grease paper slightly, you get a slightly out of focus shot, and I wanted to use an out of focus shot to take me into the next scene, and this worked quite well, at least I thought so.
Innocent and sweet, sexy ladies from the 80s who are indiscreet, all the side by side, they're glorified, where the underworld can meet the elite, 47.
Having finished Busby, I wanted to enter the film into a competition. I was quite pleased with it myself, but I didn't know how it would fit in with judges and what have you. And I never dreamed for 1 minute, but it actually won the right trophy. And I couldn't believe it, but it was a tremendous uplift for me. And then I sent it to America, to the Eastman Kodak competition, and to my great surprise, I actually won a trophy from the Movie on a Shoestring competition, and that was really a great moment, because I was very keen to go and collect the trophy, but really 3,500 miles was rather a long way to go. And so I felt that at last I'd sort of found my own thing. I felt that animation is for me, and I just want to keep to animation now. I've always been interested in the Roaring Twenties. At the end of the Roaring Twenties, I was old enough to remember some of those days, and I think it's probably been done before by the professional cinema, but I didn't care. I wanted to do my own Roaring Twenties, and I hit on the idea of starting at the end of the last World War, then very quickly coming to the 20s, where the people just were so fed up with the war, and they just let themselves go. And we had such things as the Charleston came in. We had the Keystone Cops. That was sort of all the rage in the cinemas. Walt Disney, his first Mickey Mouse film, I think it was called Tugboat Willie, if I remember rightly. We had Laurel and Hardy. All these happened in the 20s. And about 1927, Warner Brothers produced The Jazz Singer with Jolson, Al Jolson, great favourite of mine. And using the Vitaphone system, they brought out the first talking pictures. Now here, we have to have 2 or 3 layers of artwork. One is actually Jolson's face, which is my interpretation of Jolson. Over that we lay the projector shot in the film. I use 2 layers of copy paper here because when the film is processed and projected, I discovered I get a nice sepia colour, which was what I really want for this type of film. Now that is Jolson, and then as we progress, all we have to do is to change the artwork to another. Each time we have to remove the top one, of course. Now this is where, because the registration holes are most essential, because that's gone back exactly in the same position for my next frame to be shot.
My little mammy, the sun shines east, the sun shines west. I know where the sun shines best. It's on my mammy I'm talking about, nobody else's. My little mammy, my heartstrings are tangled around Alabama. Mammy, I'm coming. I hope I didn't make you wait. Mammy,
I was quite pleased with the film. 1 or 2 of my good friends I showed it to, they said, "Yes, a good film, George. You are sticking it to competitions." And so I'm pleased to say that it won the right trophy that year. And I felt, well, if it wins the right trophy, it's worthy of putting around to other national and international competitions. It got me a gold seal in the IAC. It also got me a first prize in the IAC North Thames region, which I'm a member of. I put it into the ACE competition, and very pleased to say it won the first prize there. And very pleased again to think it won 3rd place in Guernsey. And so all in all, the Roaring Twenties, I suppose, has been my sort of peak at the moment. And how do you go on about bettering for the making a better film next time? Very difficult. Well, the Roaring Twenties was in the can, finished, doing the rounds and things like that. And I thought my next film, I'd like to do something a bit emotional. And I'd heard about the little match girl, quite a sad little story, and I thought, oh yes, this might be in my capabilities. So I set about designing the artwork and that, and created the little girl. It's a very sad story. It's briefly, it's about a little match girl, very poor. Her father sends her out to sell matches in the snow. It's very cold, and people won't buy no matches, and she daren't go home because her father would beat her. And then she sits in an archway. She's freezing cold, and she strikes matches to keep herself warm, and various illusions come up on the wall, and in the end she sees her grandmother. The little girl obviously dies, and the grandmother takes her to heaven where she's at peace with the world, and that I felt was very emotional, and so I decided to make the film. Now, The Match Girl is a purely black and white film, neither colours at all. I felt that black and white suited the subject, the storyline admirably. I used black film, that's the black film here, and the white copy paper. Now I found that the white copy paper gave me a very good snow effect, and I felt that this gave me the actual effect I wanted. Right, we're ready to shoot. I give that just 2 frames because I don't want it to walk too quickly, and then remove the top section, put it back, put that one away, and take number 2, which is the next one. I then place the black film, the artwork on top again, and we keep doing that each time till at last we've got the little girl. She's gone across the snow, she's reached the recess, and that completes that sequence.
Yet another match against the wall, and in its blaze she saw her grandmother. "Grandmother," shouted the little girl, "take me with you. I know you will disappear when the match goes out."
The match girl's finished in the cane and doing the rounds. I'm pleased to say that it got us 3rd at Guernsey, and it got us 2nd at the IAC, and so it's doing me proud, and I'll pack it around, sort of thing. I don't think it's as good, the same sort of quality as the Roaring Twenties. That was perhaps my peak in filmmaking, but nevertheless, you've got to try and keep doing your best.
Where George's hobby is photography and animation, I mean, our interests have never really gone together, because mine's all sport, swimming, tennis, badminton, whatever, where George is not a bit interested in sport, and all his love's been photography and now into this animation. And bless his heart, I think that's why we get on so well together. But I love to see all his finished film. I do appreciate all his work.
I've now got another film on the stocks, because you mustn't stop, you've got to keep going and going and going. I've got another film on the stocks, and this is a tribute to a famous singer-dancer. I won't say more about the person because it's to do with commuters, but there's quite a twist in the story, but this you're going to have to wait and see when it comes on the screen.